Better than 1,000 days of diligent study in one day is one day with a great teacher. Do you think that this Japanese proverb holds true? Yes, definitely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you why, okay? Hold on a second. Excuse me. Okay, let me try to express this thought as clearly as I can. Okay, so if you look at an airplane, look at the Wright brothers. Look how brilliant they were. They actually took a machine and put it in the air, which was considered impossible in their day. A lot of people thought it was actually physically impossible. Now, how did the Wright brothers do this? Were they so brilliant? They were so much smarter than every single human in history that in their short life, relatively speaking, you have a lot of human history, many years of human history. In their short few years, they figured everything out they needed to figure out. No, they did not. They were building on pre-existing knowledge. So, for instance, the wheel, the wheel on your car, the invention of the wheel is about 7,000 years old. Okay, don't ask me how I know this. I read a lot of weird stuff. It's about 7,000 years old. Okay, so 7,000 years ago, I'm gonna hypothesize here. Okay, so please take this with a grain of salt. Some guy probably saw a rock roll down a hill. He saw a boulder roll down a hill, and he was like, "Hey, that rock went down the hill really fast, and nobody was pushing it, nobody was carrying it." And he noticed that around the rock, so he probably just kept pushing rocks down the hill and was fascinated seeing these rocks roll down the hill. And he probably noticed at one point that the roundest rocks rolled the furthest and the fastest. Maybe he rolled some logs. Maybe he rolled some trees down, and he realized, hey, the ones that I shave off their branches, they roll even faster, they're more efficient. And he started to understand that the circle rolls better. And then over time, he invented a wheel. He's like, look, instead of carrying this rock, I could roll it. Hey, what if I rolled it and I put a table upon these wheels, create an axle, create a wheel, and maybe he created a first wheelbarrow, etc. And he figured out a way to use the circle, the wheel. And that knowledge, his son didn't have to figure out. Why? Because his father taught him how to make wheels, how to make a wheelbarrow, and so on. And this is what I call inexpensive knowledge. Somebody else paid the price. Because don't forget, to learn something through trial and error can take a very, very long time. An extremely long time. Why? Because I got to try it 1,001 ways. The first guy to do something is the guy who spent all the time, energy. He surmounted all the obstacles. He withstood all the rejections. He's the guy who paid the price. Then he can turn around and give that lesson. He can give the fruits of that trial and error to somebody for free. I call that free, like inexpensive knowledge, free knowledge, right? The guy just gave me this iPhone. I didn't have to go figure out all the steps it took to build this iPhone. Somebody just handed it down to me. So the guy handed down the wheel to his sons, his neighbors, his friends, his villagers, and then they kept handing it out. And people started building upon that idea. They started building gears. They started building more sophisticated machines. And then one day the Wright brothers come and they're like, hey, let's take this technology even further. And it's a process of information. So this proverb is exactly that. Because if I try to figure out jiu-jitsu, if you look at jiu-jitsu, if you look at the old classical matches, I won't name any names, but we look at the greats, the greats. They were great. They were great for their time. But now when we look at the jiu-jitsu, we're like, hey, that was horrible. That armbar he did was really sloppy. That pass he did was really amateurish. In their day, it was classic A1 technique, and they were the best in their day. Today, if you were to teleport them from their time to our time now, they wouldn't do so well. Why? Because they handed down the knowledge to us, we refined it. Every generation is refining it. Every generation is repolishing it, reinventing it, finding not only better techniques, better variations, but we're finding better ways to teach it. So, for instance, I was rolling with Nicky Ryan, like I was telling you guys in New York, and this kid knows his stuff. But how did he get so good at the tender age of 17? Well, he's working with John Danaher. John Danaher figured out a lot of things throughout the years, and he's just spoon feeding it to this young man over and over again. Now, if Nicky had to figure out everything his trainer did, John Danaher, it would take him 20 years to be as good as he was when I rolled with him in New York just 48 hours ago. Okay, it would take him 20 years. The guy would be excuse me, he'll be 37. He'll be my age now by the time he gets as good as he is today. His trainer taught him things that he eventually would have figured out, Nikki would have figured out, or I would figure out 20 years from now, because you're going to have to do 20 years of arm bars to figure out these little details. That's how they figured them out the first time. So one master taught his student, and his student taught another, and they've kept working out the kinks. We're always working out the kinks. There's thousands and thousands of man hours in every generation, and in those thousands and thousands of man hours, you stumble upon little gems. You know, that's what I like to think when I teach. I'm showing you all the little gems that my trainer taught me, and the ones that I figured out, because there's a lot of things I figured out on my own, just by doing thousands and thousands of guard passing, thousands of takedowns, thousands of strikes. I figured out these little gems, and that's thousands and thousands of hours. And then I meet another guy who's also putting thousands of hours, and he teaches me one of the gems he's come across. And it might have taken me 5 lifetimes for me to come across that gem. And that's why we get together. And then you have this grandmaster on top who's discovered more gems than all of us, because he's been around longer than us. Maybe he's not training as hard as we are. Maybe he's not on the mat. Maybe he doesn't have the timing anymore. But he's come across so many gems that he could just kind of hand them down to us. That's why I really love this proverb. I think it's really, really true, because if you were to do it on your own, if you were the most brilliant guy, and we started you back at the level of the wheel, you would never get to the airplane in your lifetime. The Wright brothers, as brilliant as they would never get to the airplane if they had to figure out the wheel and take it to the gear and then take it to the airplane. It's just too many years of trial and error. They would need thousands of lifetimes. So definitely, learning from a teacher in one day, you could learn something. Like I was just telling you guys, I learned this gem about how to stop somebody from passing a guard, like a real gem. John Denahar just got something I'd never seen before, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. It might have took me 10, 15 years to stumble across that, or notice it. Maybe I would have stumbled across it and not even noticed that this detail. And that's why I think it's so important to work with somebody with more experience, who's done it before, who's been around the block, because that experience can give you light years of information.